Levi, an ex-Marine, reads a message instructing him to report to the Marine Corps base. Upon arrival, Bartholomew interviews him and gives him the job. He turns out to be an elite sniper who has also worked for private contractors before and has no family or loved ones. In Lithuania, Dresa visits her mother's grave and finds her father there. They have a quiet reunion and talk about her work as an assassin briefly. She tells him about a doctor's arrangement for his cancer treatment, but her father denies the treatment and says that if he isn't dead by February 14th, he plans to end his own life on that day and rest beside her mother's grave. It is September and Levi wakes up in a plane, groggy from anesthesia. A soldier comes out and confiscates his watch, cell phone, and ID in a case. The plane opens up and he jumps off the plane with his belongings. After landing safely, he walks the rest of his journey, and the next day he reaches the edge of a vast gorge. He is met by JD, the soldier guard who's been stationed there for a year. JD takes him to the West Tower and briefs him that the tower is self-sufficient with solar energy, a backup generator, a rainwater system, and a garden. He tells Levi about the East Tower on the opposite side, and any contact with the other side is strictly prohibited. JD continues to explain the everyday tasks Levi must perform. There is no phone or any outside communication. But in case of an emergency and the gorge is overrun, there's a panic button to activate. He also reveals that this facility dates back to the Cold War, where military teams from various nations formed a coalition to keep it hidden from everyone, even world leaders. The guard's job is to ensure nothing escapes from the gorge. He explains that their predecessors nicknamed the creatures in the gorge the Hollow Men. He also explains that in the late 1940s, 3 entire battalions, consisting of 2,400 horseback men, were sent into the gorge to clean it out, but none of them returned. Since then, the military has shifted focus to containment. After sharing this grim history, JD says goodbye to Levi and leaves. On the first night, Levi eats a lonely dinner, washes the dishes, and writes a poem. He then has a drink and neatly lays out his weapons and sleeps. Meanwhile, JD reaches his pickup point and lights up a flare. A helicopter arrives, lowering a rope, and a soldier aboard asks for his identity. After confirming the same, the soldier shoots him dead and drops him. Days pass and Levi has settled into the monotony of his daily routine of patrolling the perimeter, maintaining the security systems, and performing his regular radio check-ins with no other questions entertained. One day, as he picks some veggies from the garden, he hears a chainsaw sound from the East Tower. He goes up and checks from his binoculars and spots Dresa chopping wood. It's November. Dresa lights up a candle and sings a song by herself. After some hesitation, she looks at Levi and sees him writing something. She quickly writes something down and fires a shot, grabbing Levi's attention. She then holds up a sign asking for his name. Levi responds with a note saying they are not allowed to contact. But Dresa writes back, introducing herself and declaring that she'll do whatever she pleases on her birthday. Amused, Levi replies with his name and raises a glass, proposing a toast across the divide. After a bit of fun, she becomes tense and puts off the music. She signals Levi to look down, and when he does, he sees the creatures scaling up the walls. He shoots at the creature, sending it crashing onto a mine, which detonates. Dresa joins in and takes the creatures down by her machine gun. And just when they think it's over, one of the creatures reaches Dresa's tower. She is taken aback seeing the odd creature but shoots it multiple times, then kicks it off the edge. But more creatures are climbing the wall on Dresa's side of the gorge. Levi takes them down shooting from his side, and one falls onto a mine, triggering an explosion that sends a piece of splinter flying off and injuring Dresa. Levi quickly gets on the machine gun and takes out the climbing creatures on Dresa's and his side as well. Though injured, Dresa gets up and helps Levi. Later, Levi heads out to repair the damage and replace the mines. Suddenly, a drone emerges from the gorge and takes off into the sky, leaving him scratching his head. It's December. Dresa seems to be down and missing her father. She gets out to the balcony and sees that Levi has transformed a tree into a makeshift Christmas tree and wishes her a Merry Christmas. The two start communicating more frequently, playing games of chess, and making improvised drum sets and building snowmen. It's February. Dresa has a candle lit and cries looking at her father's picture, knowing that he has taken his own life today, like he had told her before. Levi asks why she didn't go on patrol earlier, and she confides that she's having a difficult day and wishes he could be there with her. Levi thinks as he lies down and quickly goes to the armory and collects his equipment. He fires a rocket across the gorge, making a zip line. The rocket gets lodged in a tree and starts a fire, but Dresa quickly runs to extinguish it. She heads back to her tower to see Levi inviting her to dinner. Levi then grabs some flowers and slides down the zip line to cross the gorge but gets stuck halfway. But he made it to the other side safely.
I brought you flowers.
During dinner, they discuss their lives and jobs. Levi confides a trauma he had with one of the jobs he did. As the evening unfolds, they share a dance, eventually culminating in an intimate moment. The next morning, Levi slides down the zipline to return to his tower. Halfway through, the hollow men appear on his side of the gorge, triggering a mine that causes a massive explosion, cutting the zipline. Dresa rushes to her armory to grab weapons and equipment. She then jumps into the gorge, falling deep before she deploys her parachute and lands in a river. As her parachute gets caught on a rock, she quickly cuts it loose. The current pushes her downstream, and as her body slams into a rock, she accidentally drops the auto-ascender. The river continues to carry her downstream, but she grabs onto a tree log. Meanwhile, Levi is unconscious and hanging from a tree. A huge, weird insect approaches him, making Levi react instinctively, firing his weapon. He falls on the ground, but as he tries to move, he is trapped, and a claw-like mouth slowly begins to close in. Dresa arrives and fires on the creature and gets him out. The two set off toward the wall to find the zipline. But before they can reach it, they hear the screeching of the hollow men. The creatures show themselves on horses, attacking Levi and Dresa with swords. One of the riders leaps off his horse and charges at Dresa, intent on bringing her down. A fight ensues with both of them dealing with one creature each, and they manage to finish them off. But one of the creatures got away. As Levi examines the creature he killed more closely, he discovers a very old military uniform, confirming that the hollow men are the lost horseback battalions who never returned from the gorge. Dresa checks her bag and realizes that the auto-ascender has fallen off in the river, which is 500 meters high. She suggests they follow the river, believing it must eventually lead somewhere. The pair continues their journey through the forest, encountering endless skeletons along the way. They can hear a screeching sound of the creatures in the distance, so they go inside a church, where they find more skeletons sitting in the pews. As they scan the place, Dresa looks up and a massive spider with a skull leaps on her. She manages to push it off but falls to the ground, where another spider attacks. Before long, they are surrounded by an army of spiders. They both open fire at the spiders and go towards the door, but a group of hollow men bursts in, forcing them to juggle fighting the spiders and the creatures. They have a fierce battle against the creatures and the spiders. In a final desperate move, Dresa shoots and makes a massive hole in the wall that allows them to escape. They go to the gorge wall and find a door. They go inside, and after reloading their guns, they move further inside. The place is overrun by creepy-looking plants, and they come into a room that looks like a research lab. As they scan the area, Levi finds a film roll under a skeleton's hand and Dresa puts the generator on. They play the film in a projector and see a scientist explaining that it's 1946. During the final years of World War II, they had been working on creating biochemical missiles. However, 6 days ago, an earthquake struck the area, causing a leak. The human DNA has merged with the genetic DNA of the plants, animals, and even insects, causing mutations. Exposure to the toxin for just a few hours didn't have an immediate effect, but as the scientists continued to work, the toxin began to affect them as well, with the woman in the video showing her mutation. She adds that if infected, the mutation begins within 5 days of the exposure. Levi and Dresa still have hope that they will be fine as they are exposed only for a few hours till now. In another room, they find a computer from the late 2000s and protective gear as well. Levi powers up the computer and discovers Darklake, a private paramilitary corporation, is still researching the gorge. Their drones are collecting hybrid DNA samples for genetic research, explaining the drone he had seen earlier. He also finds out that they are creating super soldiers and the guards are there to protect their secrets. Levi clicks on a file named Stray Dog, a failsafe developed by the original researchers to sterilize the site with a nuclear detonation. The countdown for Stray Dog is 2 minutes and the radiation safe zone is 4.2 kilometers. The duo comes back to the main door, but Dresa finds her gear bag missing. Levi tells her that the creatures can think tactically, so as soon as they open the door, he throws a smoke grenade to cover their exit and steps out. They look around and Dresa finds her gear bag. As she picks up the bag, a hollow man's whip suddenly wraps around Dresa's ankle and yanks her away. As the rider drags her through the forest, she shoots him but does not hit him. After a few shots, she is out of ammo and is knocked out when she hits a tree trunk. Levi immediately follows the tracks left by the rider and eventually discovers the facility housing the nuclear bomb. Inside, the hollow man has Dresa hanging, twisting the branch lodged in her stomach as a form of torture. As he approaches her again, Dresa gives him a powerful kick to his chest and frees herself. She then grabs a piece of metal and fights the creature. It doesn't do much damage, but it enrages the creature, who begins chasing her and attacking with his sword. The fight continues, but Levi suddenly shoots from behind and saves her. He grabs the sword, and as they move out, he explains that this place holds the leaked missile. They see several mutated creatures on their bridge path. As they carefully move towards the other end trying not to disturb the creatures, Dresa accidentally steps on it, and when she pulls her foot out, the bodies of the creatures begin falling, trying to grab her. Levi quickly uses the sword to sever the roots and save her. But more creatures are awakened and begin to roar. As Levi cuts through the roots with his sword, a root gets his ankle. Dresa immediately fires a grenade, causing a massive explosion that sets the creatures on fire. The duo comes out of the facility and goes to the maintenance shed. Excited to find military jeeps inside, Levi tells Dresa they can use this as an ascender. They do some maintenance and drive off until they reach the broken zipline. Levi ties it to the jeep while Dresa fends off the approaching creatures. When her bullets run out, they switch positions. Dresa is behind the wheels and they begin their ascent up the wall. At first, everything goes smoothly, but soon they realize the hollow men are climbing after them. One of them climbs on the jeep, but Dresa manages to kick it off. Levi uses a sword to fend off the others while Dresa finds an axe in the toolbox and starts taking down creatures as well. Though they keep fighting the creatures, they are outnumbered, so in a desperate move, he stabs the jeep's gas tank, climbs back up, and ignites a flare. Throwing it at the creatures, the flare ignites the propane, causing a massive explosion and wipes out the remaining creatures. Standing on a rocky edge, Dresa cuts the rope and they climb the rest of the way up. Later, they tend to their wounds and decide to quarantine for the next 5 days. They also decide to destroy the gorge using Stray Dog. The next day, Levi uses a grappling gun to make a zipline. He tells Dresa he loves her and goes back to his tower. Later, during their mandatory radio check-in, Bartholomew comes on the line. She tells him that their computer in the lab was activated and asks him if he went into the gorge. Levi denies being in the gorge. She concludes that the person in the other tower must have been. Levi is given a new mission to kill the person in the other tower. He pretends to accept, and the call ends. Bartholomew knows both soldiers were down there. She orders a commander to gather a team and prepare to visit the gorge. The following morning, they both set mines for their plan. Suddenly, they spot a helicopter approaching, so they immediately flee into the forest. Bartholomew arrives with her soldiers and finds Levi's tower abandoned. She orders to deploy drones, initiating a chase. Dresa and Levi run as fast as they can to cover the safe zone of 4.2 kilometers. The drones find them and open fire quickly, but they shoot, managing to bring them all down one by one despite sustaining a few injuries. As they reach a high enough spot, they take up sniper positions and begin shooting the cloakers. The mines they planted earlier trigger a chain reaction, destroying all the cloakers in the area. As the gorge becomes exposed, the Stray Dog protocol is activated. Bartholomew panics as she hears the siren and rushes to the helicopter to escape, while Levi and Dresa sprint as fast as they can. The nuclear bomb detonates, causing an enormous explosion that brings down the helicopter, killing everyone inside. Dresa manages to cover her safe zone. However, Levi is knocked off a cliff by the blast and falls into the river below. Dresa stays in a cave waiting for Levi, striking off her quarantine days. After 5 days, she leaves the cave as she is not infected and goes to France, the place they talked about going off together. It's April and Dresa works as a waitress. After serving some customers, she's pleasantly shocked to find Levi sitting at a table. She says he's late, to which he replies he got injured on his last job but had to get back to her. The two reunite with a kiss.